She thought it was a fake wedding. Then the millionaire whispered, "Nothing will be cancelled." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. Rain hammered against the glass walls of the Manhattan skyline as Maya Tran stood outside the top floor of Blackwood Enterprises. Her reflection in the elevator door looked like a stranger cheap umbrella, thrift store blazer, eyes that had not slept. When the doors opened, a secretary greeted her with a polite but cold, "Mr. Blackwood will see you now." Inside the boardroom, the city glowed beneath the storm. At the head of the table sat Adrian Blackwood, 34, the man whose name controlled half of New York's skyline. His suit looked effortless, but his expression was sharp as a blade. Maya clutched the envelope in her hands, her final invoice for the event she had planned, a wedding that was supposed to happen in 48 hours. She just wanted her payment, nothing else. Adrian barely looked up. "Sit." His tone was calm, too calm. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was not a check, but a marriage contract to her name typed neatly beside his. Maya blinked, confused. "What is this?" He leaned back, voice low. "A solution. The wedding cannot be cancelled. The investors, the press, everyone expects a ceremony. My fiancé left. I need a bride to keep the deal alive." She laughed softly, thinking it was a joke. "You are serious?" "I am never anything else." His gaze held hers. "You already know every detail of the event. You are single. You need money. I need a wife temporarily." Her heart pounded. "That is insane. You could hire an actress." "I could," he said, "but I need someone I can trust. Someone who does not care about fame." He slid another paper forward. "Her debts, her mother's hospital bills. I take care of these. You stand beside me for 6 weeks. After that, you are free." Maya's fingers trembled as she read the terms. No real feelings, no real vows. "Exactly." His voice softened. "It will be business, nothing more." Bondo, thunder rolled outside. For a moment she imagined her mother's pale face, the notice from the landlord taped to their door. Pride fought with desperation. She closed her eyes, exhaled, and whispered, "Fine, but you will not own me." Adrian almost smiled. "Of course not." He reached into his pocket, took out a ring. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the city still looked gray, washed clean and unfamiliar. Maya stood in front of the massive doors of Blackwood Enterprises again, holding a small suitcase. Her entire life fit inside it, 2 changes of clothes, a laptop that barely worked, and a folder of unpaid bills. She took a deep breath before the guards opened the glass doors. Her shoes clicked against the marble floor as she followed the assistant down a quiet hallway toward the elevator reserved for executives only. The elevator rose fast, carrying her higher and higher until the numbers disappeared. When the doors opened, sunlight poured in from the floor to ceiling windows. Adrian was already there, waiting. No jacket this time, just a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His eyes lifted from a stack of documents. "Right on time," he said. His tone gave nothing away. Maya's voice was steady but tight. "I am not late for a fake marriage, Mr. Blackwood." He glanced at her suitcase. "You can drop the Mr. from now on. It is Adrian. You will be living in my apartment for the next 6 weeks. We should look convincing." She hesitated. "Your apartment?" He nodded, matter of fact. "It will be easier for the press and the investors. My assistant will show you to the guest room. You will have privacy. This is business, remember?" The words sounded simple, but they landed heavy. Maya followed the assistant through a glass bridge that connected his office to the private penthouse above. The space was breathtaking white marble floors, dark wood furniture, a view that stretched across the Hudson River. It was not a home. It was a fortress made of wealth and silence. In the guest room, she unpacked quietly. Every item she placed in the wardrobe looked out of place among designer suits and silk dresses. On the nightstand, she set her sketchbook, her one small comfort from the life before. Her mother used to call it the window to your peace. Maya ran her fingers across its worn cover before she heard a knock. Adrian stood at the door. "The tailor will arrive in an hour. You need 2 gowns for the media events and 1 for the ceremony." "I can buy my own," she said quickly. He looked at her for a moment, the faintest curve touching his lips. "I am sure you could, but this is not a street market. I will handle it." She bit back a reply. There was no point arguing with a man who could buy the sky. Later that afternoon, the apartment filled with the quiet hum of the tailor's team measuring fabric, pinning lace, and adjusting hems. Maya stood before the mirror in a simple ivory dress. For a second, she caught her own reflection and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked graceful, expensive, but her eyes were the same, uncertain, searching for solid ground. Adrian entered without knocking. The tailor froze, stepping aside. He circled her slowly, like he was inspecting a piece of art. "That one," he said. "Keep it." Maya crossed her arms. "You do not have to decide everything for me." He met her gaze in the mirror. "You agreed to a contract. Presentation is part of it. You said no real vows, no feelings. Fine. But this," he motioned toward the gown, "is business." Her jaw tightened. "You are right. I just forgot what that feels like, being managed." Something flickered in his eyes then. Something that looked almost like regret. "You are not being managed, Maya. You are being seen." She turned away, unsure whether that was supposed to comfort her. That evening, over dinner, silence sat heavy between them. The penthouse lights reflected off the silverware, and the rain outside began again, soft against the glass. Adrian finally spoke. "You will meet the press tomorrow. They will ask questions about how we met. Keep it simple. Say we worked together, reconnected, and fell in love unexpectedly. The fewer lies, the better." Maya nodded, pushing food around her plate. "And what if they ask why a billionaire like you married a woman like me?" He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Then I will tell them the truth, that I married the only woman who did not try to impress me." For a moment neither of them moved. The air between them shifted, fragile but alive. Then Adrian stood, gathering his papers. "Get some rest. Tomorrow the pretending begins." When he left, Maya sat alone in the vast quiet, the city lights glittering beyond the glass. She touched the ring on her finger, cold and weightless, and whispered to herself, "It is only 6 weeks. Just 6 weeks." But deep down, as thunder rolled again over Manhattan, she already knew 6 weeks would change everything, simple and silver. Wear it. The world starts watching tomorrow. As she slid the ring onto her finger, the storm outside roared louder, like the city itself knew nothing about this was going to stay fake. The next day came too fast. Morning light spilled through the glass walls, painting golden lines across the marble floor. Maya stood in front of the mirror, hands shaking as she fastened the clasp of a diamond necklace that did not belong to her. Her reflection looked like someone rehearsing a role she had not chosen. In a few minutes, they would face the press together. The world would believe a love story that was never meant to be. Adrian appeared behind her, dressed in a charcoal suit, calm and composed. "You look fine," he said simply. "Fine?" she repeated, trying to hide her nerves. "I am about to lie to half of New York." He adjusted his cufflinks without looking at her. "Then make it believable. That is what you do best, is it not? Event planner, storyteller, fixer of appearances." Maya exhaled slowly. "I hope your investors buy the story." "They will," he said, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "They always do." At the press event, flashes burst like fireworks. Reporters called out questions over one another. Adrian placed a firm hand on her waist, guiding her through the crowd. The touch startled her, not because it was warm, but because it felt real. "Miss Tran, how did you and Mr. Blackwood meet?" a reporter asked, microphone raised. Maya smiled politely. "We worked together years ago. Life took us separate ways, but sometimes destiny does not ask for permission." Adrian's hand tightened gently at her side, approving. Another reporter shouted, "And when is the honeymoon?" "After the merger," Adrian replied smoothly. The crowd laughed, charmed by his wit. Cameras clicked, and the flashbulbs turned their pretend story into headlines. By evening, the internet was flooded with photos of the most mysterious wedding of the year. Maya's phone buzzed endlessly, messages from old colleagues and strangers calling her lucky. She switched it off, feeling the irony burn in her chest. That night, she sat on the balcony overlooking the city. The wind carried the sound of sirens and distant traffic. Adrian joined her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He offered one. "To surviving day one," he said. She took it reluctantly. "To surviving." He leaned against the railing beside her. "You handled the press well. I had no choice. I cannot afford another failure." He studied her quietly. You say that like you have had too many. Maya turned toward him. When you grow up on the edge of eviction notices and overdue bills, failure becomes part of your morning routine. His gaze softened. That is why you fight. It is why you fascinate me. She looked away quickly. Do not mistake survival for strength. I am not, he said. But maybe strength comes from surviving anyway. The moment lingered between them, quiet but heavy. She felt something she had not planned for understanding. Maybe even warmth. She pushed the thought away. The next morning, they met with Adrian's board of directors. The room smelled of coffee and power. Men in suits eyed Maya like she was an unexpected variable in a perfect equation. Adrian introduced her as my wife, the word echoed. It sounded like a lie wrapped in gold. After the meeting, one of the executives whispered just loud enough for her to hear, "He really married the help?" Maya's cheeks burned, but she kept her chin high. She had been underestimated her entire life. One more time would not break her. When the meeting ended, Adrian approached her in the hallway. "You heard them?" she said quietly. "I did," he replied. "Do not let it bother you. They will learn respect." She gave him a small, tired smile. "Respect cannot be bought, Adrian." "No," he said, his voice low, "but it can be earned. Let me handle it." Later that evening, as they prepared for another charity dinner, Maya caught him staring at her reflection in the mirror again. "What?" she asked. He shook his head. "You are doing better than I expected." "That sounds like a compliment that forgot how to be kind." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I am out of practice." For a moment, something unspoken passed between them, like the air before a storm. The boundaries of their contract blurred just enough to feel dangerous. When they arrived at the gala, the ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne. A journalist congratulated them again. Adrian slipped his hand into hers, his voice low near her ear. "Remember, pretend you are happy." Maya smiled for the cameras, her heart thudding faster than the orchestra behind them. "Pretend," she whispered back. "I thought that was your specialty." He glanced at her, something like amusement flickering in his eyes. "Maybe you are learning fast." And in that fleeting moment, beneath the glare of lights and whispers of a crowd that believed their every lie, Maya realized the strangest truth pretending was starting to feel real. The following week unfolded like a blur of lights, cameras, and champagne toasts. Every event, every handshake, every forced smile became part of the performance. Maya had learned to move like someone who belonged, to walk into rooms filled with millionaires and not flinch, to wear confidence like another piece of jewelry. But every night, when the gowns came off and the city lights dimmed, the silence between her and Adrian felt louder than the applause. One afternoon, Adrian's assistant, a sharp woman named Claire, handed Maya a list of upcoming appearances. "This one is important," Claire said. "The Blackwood Foundation Gala. All eyes will be on you. Make no mistakes." Maya nodded, but the warning lingered. Later that evening, she found Adrian in his office, surrounded by folders and contracts. He looked exhausted but unreadable. "You should rest," she said softly. He did not look up. "Rest is for people who can afford it." "You can afford anything," she replied. Adrian finally glanced at her, his eyes dark under the low light. "Except time, or peace." There was a pause. Then he stood and poured himself a glass of whiskey. "You will need a new gown for the gala. The designers will arrive tomorrow." She hesitated at the doorway. "Adrian, why do you always sound like you are giving orders, not speaking to a person?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because every time I tried speaking as a person, someone used it against me." The words caught her off guard. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire, but the man beneath, the one who built walls so high that even kindness could not climb them. The next evening, the designers came and left, and the dress they created shimmered like liquid silver. Maya stood on the balcony again, the city glowing beneath her. Adrian joined her, holding a cup of black coffee instead of whiskey this time. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "you will be tested. They will want to see if you belong in this world." She looked at him. "Do you think I do?" He smiled faintly. "You belong wherever you decide to stand." The gala was held at the Grand Orpheum, a ballroom carved in gold and history. Every chandelier sparkled like captured starlight. As Maya entered on Adrian's arm, conversations paused. Photographers flashed, guests whispered. Adrian's ex-fiancée, elegant and venomous, glided toward them. "Well, Adrian," she said sweetly, "you move fast. Last month you were engaged to me. Now you are playing house with your event planner?" Maya felt the room tilt. But she steadied herself. The ex continued, voice dripping with mock pity. "Tell me, dear, how does it feel to rent a husband?" A few guests laughed quietly. Maya lifted her glass, meeting the woman's gaze without flinching. "It feels better than renting a heart," she said. "At least this one still works." The laughter died instantly. Adrian's lips curved, just slightly, pride glinting in his eyes. "Excuse us," he said, leading Maya away from the crowd. In the quiet hallway outside the ballroom, he stopped and turned to her. "You did not have to defend me," he said. "I was defending myself," she replied. "But if it helped your pride, you are welcome." He chuckled softly. Then his expression softened. "You surprised me. That makes two of us," she murmured. For a long moment they stood there, the music muffled through the doors, the world outside frozen. Adrian took a step closer, his voice low. "You do not have to pretend all the time, Maya. You can breathe here." She swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "I do not know how anymore." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, an ache neither of them had planned for. Adrian reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "You are shaking," he said. "It is cold," she lied. He smiled, almost sadly. "It is not." Then he turned away before either of them could cross a line they could never uncross. Later that night, back at the penthouse, Maya found him sitting alone in the dark, the city lights painting his profile in silver and blue. He looked up when she entered. "I never thanked you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For reminding me what dignity looks like." She did not answer. Instead, she sat across from him, the distance between them smaller than ever, yet still infinite. The contract still bound them, the rules still clear, but the truth was beginning to stretch past the paper it was written on. Outside, the rain started again, gentle but persistent, washing over the city that never slept. And as the night deepened, both of them wondered the same quiet question neither dared to speak aloud: what happens when something fake begins to feel real? The days after the gala felt strangely quiet. The scandal that everyone predicted never came. Instead, the newspapers praised Maya's confidence and composure, calling her the mysterious woman who silenced the Upper East Side. Adrian barely commented, but she noticed the difference in how people looked at her now, no longer like an intruder, but like someone who had earned her seat at the table. Still, Maya could feel something shifting between them. It was in the way his eyes lingered when he thought she was not looking, the way his voice softened when he said her name. The contract said no real feelings, but the human heart never cared for rules. One evening, the city was painted in the orange glow of sunset when she found Adrian in the living room, tie loosened, a glass of wine half forgotten beside him. He looked tired, but not from work. She hesitated in the doorway. "You skipped dinner again?" she said gently. He gave a faint smile. "I was not hungry." She sat down across from him. "That is what you say every night. You run an empire, Adrian, but you treat yourself like a machine." He turned the glass slowly in his hand. "Machines do not feel pain. And people do," she said softly. "Even the ones who pretend not to." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, for the first time, he spoke without the armor. "When I was 21, I lost my father in a plane crash. He left debts no one knew about. I built everything you see from the ashes of his mistakes. I promised myself I would never depend on anyone again." Her eyes softened. "And now?" "Now," he said quietly, "I find myself depending on someone I should not." The air between them thickened. She felt the weight of his confession press against her chest. "This is not part of the deal," she whispered. "I know." He stood, walking toward the window. But sometimes the line between business and feeling disappears before you even notice. The following morning, the illusion of calm shattered. News headlines flashed across every screen in the building. Leaked documents reveal Blackwood marriage was a business contract. The photographs were real. The signatures, the dates, everything. Maya's stomach dropped as she read the articles. The reporters called her a paid bride, a gold digger, a calculated liar. Cameras swarmed outside the building before she could even leave. She stormed into Adrian's office, face pale but fierce. "Did you leak this?" He looked up from his phone, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "Of course not. Why would I destroy the company and you in the process?" "Then who did?" His jaw tightened. "Someone with access. Probably one of the board members." "They are calling me a fraud, Adrian," she said, voice trembling. "Everything I built, everything I survived it is all being turned into a joke." He stood, reaching for her hand. I will fix it. She pulled away. No, this was your world, your contract. I just stepped into it. Maya, do not, her voice cracked. You said it would be business. Now I am the one paying the price for believing you. She turned and left before he could stop her. The elevator doors closed, sealing the silence between them. Hours later, Adrian sat alone in his office, staring at the city below. Every headline cut deeper than the last. He thought of her voice, the way she had stood beside him when everyone doubted him, the way she had made him feel human again. For the first time, the man who could fix anything had no idea where to start. Maya packed her things quietly that night. She left the ring on his desk, a small circle of silver glinting beneath the office lights. Beside it, she left a note. Nothing fake stays forever. Thank you for proving that real things hurt. When Adrian returned hours later, the penthouse felt empty in a way that money could never fill. He picked up the ring, turning it in his hand. The press outside still shouted his name, but he could not hear them. The world saw a scandal. He saw a woman who had walked into his storm and somehow taught him how to breathe again. He set the ring down, exhaled, and whispered into the quiet. You said 6 weeks. I need the rest of my life. Outside, the city moved on, as it always did. But somewhere beneath the endless hum of New York, a truth waited to be spoken, the kind that no contract could contain. 2 days passed, but it felt like months. Maya had vanished from the apartment, from the office, from the headlines. The media still feasted on the story of the fake marriage, twisting it into every cruel version possible. Cameras camped outside Blackwood Enterprises. Reporters shouted questions about the contract, and investors demanded explanations. Adrian barely slept. He met with lawyers, publicists, and the board, but none of it mattered. Every time he looked at the empty chair in his office, the one she used to sit in during late meetings, he felt a hollow echo inside his chest. The world called him ruthless, but the truth was simpler. He had broken the only thing that had ever made him feel human again. That evening, as the rain returned to the city, he found himself driving aimlessly. The windshield blurred with water, the skyline melting into streaks of gray and gold. He stopped at a quiet corner cafe, the kind of place that smelled like old wood and memories. It was the same cafe where she had once met him before their deal began. He sat at the same table, untouched cup of coffee before him. The doorbell chimed. He looked up. For a heartbeat, he thought his mind was playing tricks, but it was her. Maya stood there, soaked from the rain, holding a folder close to her chest. She looked thinner, tired, but her eyes still carried that fierce light he could never forget. You should not be here, he said quietly. I am not here for you, she answered. I am here for the truth. She sat down across from him, pulling out documents from the folder. I traced the leak. It was not a reporter. It came from someone in your board Claire's division. She sent the files to your rival company in exchange for a merger offer. Adrian's jaw clenched. Claire? Yes. She had access to your private server. She covered her tracks, but she forgot the timestamp on the backup drive. Maya slid the evidence across the table. I thought you should know before I disappear for good. He stared at the papers, then at her. Why tell me? You could have walked away and let me drown. Because I do not want to become what they say I am, she said softly. I was never here for money. I just wanted my mother safe, and I wanted to do the right thing one last time. Rain streaked down the window beside them. Adrian's voice lowered. I was wrong, Maya. I thought I could control everything, but I could not control what you made me feel. She looked at him, eyes glistening. Do not say things you cannot keep. I am not saying them for show. I am saying them because I am done pretending. For a moment, neither spoke. The cafe seemed to shrink around them until there was only the sound of rain and breath and the unspoken truth between them. Adrian reached across the table. Let me fix this. Not for the company. For us. There is no us, Adrian. There was a contract. It ended. He shook his head slowly. It ended the second I started falling for you. She stood, gathering her things. Feelings do not erase damage. My name is ruined, and I have no place in your world. He rose too. Then I will change my world. His voice carried a weight she had never heard before. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and spoke to his PR chief right there in front of her. Schedule a press conference. Tomorrow morning. I will speak publicly. Then he hung up. Maya's breath caught. You cannot face them alone. They will destroy you. Then let them, he said. If I built this empire on lies, it deserves to fall. The truth is the only thing left worth keeping. She looked at him, speechless. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire, not the businessman, but the man who had finally chosen honesty over power. That night, she walked home through the rain, unsure whether she wanted him to fail or to rise. The city glowed around her, indifferent to human hearts. In her small apartment, she found her mother asleep, peaceful for once. Maya sat beside her, listening to the faint rhythm of her breathing. She whispered, "Maybe he really means it." Across town, Adrian stood on the balcony of his penthouse, watching the storm roll in. The press release draft lay open on his desk, every word a risk. But for the first time in years, he felt something close to freedom. Tomorrow would change everything: his company, his reputation, maybe even his future. He did not know if Maya would forgive him, but he knew one thing for certain. He would no longer hide behind a contract. The storm outside raged louder, but for Adrian Blackwood, the noise inside had finally gone quiet. Morning came gray and heavy, clouds hanging low over the city like unspoken judgment. The conference room at Blackwood Enterprises was filled with reporters, cameras, and the hum of tension. Every seat was taken, every lens pointed at the podium. Adrian stood alone before the crowd. No handlers, no lawyers, no shield, just him. The world waited for the ruthless billionaire to defend his empire. Instead, he took a slow breath and began. "You have read the stories. You have seen the documents. And yes, there was a contract." His voice was steady, cutting through the noise. "But what none of those papers can show you is the truth that came after." The room stirred, pen scratching. Adrian continued. "I created that agreement out of fear. Fear of losing control, fear of appearing weak, fear of needing someone. But that woman Maya Tran showed me that honesty does not make you weak. It makes you real. She did not use me. I used her. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that right." Reporters shouted questions. One asked, "Are you confirming your marriage was fake?" Adrian met their gaze. "It started as one, but the only fake thing left is the story you keep printing." The room erupted in flashes and noise, but he walked off the stage without another word. Outside, rain began to fall again, light at first, then harder. It was as if the city itself exhaled. Across town, Maya watched the press conference on a small television in her mother's living room. Her hands shook as she clutched a cup of tea. When Adrian spoke her name, she froze. By the time the screen cut to commercials, her heart was pounding. Her mother stirred awake, looking at her softly. "He fought for you," she whispered. "People do not do that unless they mean it." Maya did not answer. She stood and walked to the window. The streets outside shimmered with rain, reflections of 1,000 blurred lights. For weeks she had lived inside shame and silence. Now, for the first time, the noise in her mind quieted too. Later that evening, Adrian's car pulled up to the same cafe where everything had fallen apart. He was drenched, still wearing the same suit from the press event. When he stepped inside, Maya was already there. She had known he would come. He stopped a few feet away, uncertain. "You saw it," he said. "I did. Do you believe me now?" She looked at him for a long time before answering. "I believe that you meant what you said, but I do not know what to do with it." He nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then let me prove it." "How?" He reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the table, a single envelope. Inside was a check made out to her, enough to clear her debts and cover her mother's care. "This is not a bribe," he said quietly. "It is what I owe you for the damage, for the headlines, for the pain I caused." Maya stared at the envelope, then pushed it back toward him. "You cannot buy forgiveness, Adrian. I am not trying to. I am trying to deserve it." For a moment, silence filled the cafe, broken only by the sound of rain tapping against the glass. Maya's voice softened. "You did not have to face them alone today." He smiled faintly. "I was never alone. Every word I said, I was thinking of you." Outside, thunder rolled far away, gentle now, like an echo fading into calm. For the first time since their deal began, they both stood without contracts, lies, or titles between them. Just two people, raw, uncertain, and painfully real. The next morning, the rain finally stopped. The city woke under a pale sky, washed clean and quiet. For the first time in weeks, headlines about Adrian Blackwood were not filled with scandal but with something unexpected: admiration. CEO admits to contract marriage, takes full responsibility. The world that once mocked him now called his confession brave. But for Adrian, redemption did not feel like victory. He had cleared the truth, yet the one person who mattered still stood on the other side of silence. Maya spent the morning walking along the East River, the wind cold but gentle. She stopped by the railing, watching the water shift under the gray light. In her hand, she held a small note Adrian had slipped into her bag last night before leaving the cafe. It said only one line: "Meet me at the gallery, noon." She almost did not go, but something in her heart refused to stay away. When she arrived, the glass doors of the Blackwood Foundation art wing were open. Inside, soft piano music drifted through the air. The gallery was empty, except for one exhibit in the center, an entire collection of paintings, all bathed in warm light. Above the entrance, a plaque read, "The Art of Maya Tran." Her breath caught. She walked slowly from one canvas to another. Each painting was a moment from her sketchbook: her mother in the garden, the rainy skyline, a woman standing alone beneath an umbrella. They had been enlarged, framed, and displayed with care. Adrian stepped out from behind one of the pillars, dressed simply, no suit, no armor. "You left your sketchbook at the penthouse," he said softly. "I thought the world should see what I saw, the strength in your quiet, the beauty in your survival." Maya blinked back tears. "You had no right." He stepped closer. "I know. But I wanted to show you that your story deserves more than gossip headlines. It deserves light." She looked around again, the weight of the moment pressing against her heart. "Why would you do this?" "Because I meant every word I said at that press conference. You were never part of a lie. You were the only truth in all of it." Her voice trembled. "And what now? What happens after this?" Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out something small: her ring. The same simple silver band she had left on his desk weeks ago. He held it out between them. "I tore up the contract. But if you will let me, I want to start over. No deals, no deadlines, no pretending." Maya stared at the ring, the light catching on the metal. "You do not owe me a grand gesture." "This is not grand," he said. "It is honest." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she smiled through the tears, the first real smile he had seen since that stormy night when it all began. "You never learn to quit, do you?" He smiled too. "Not when it comes to you." Slowly she took the ring, not as a symbol of obligation, but as a choice. Around them, the gallery lights glowed brighter, reflecting on the glass walls like dawn breaking through. Outside, the city moved as it always did, noisy, fast, unbothered. But inside that gallery, time stood still. Two people who had once signed a contract now stood on the edge of something real, fragile, and new. And as Maya slipped the ring onto her finger once more, she whispered the same words he once told her, almost like a promise: "Nothing will be canceled." A few months later, spring returned to New York. The city that had once judged them now watched quietly, as if time itself had chosen to forgive. The scandal was gone, the headlines had faded, and in its place, a new story had begun, one that no one could fabricate. Inside the same gallery that once bore her name alone, sunlight streamed through the glass ceiling, warm and gentle. Flowers lined the floor, white and soft as clouds. Friends, employees, and quiet well-wishers filled the space. But this time there were no reporters, no cameras, and no contracts. At the center of it all stood Maya, dressed not in silk or diamonds, but in a simple ivory gown that shimmered when she moved. Across from her stood Adrian, wearing a modest black suit, no tie, no pretenses, just the man she had come to know behind the headlines. The officiant's voice carried softly over the gentle piano music. "Do you, Adrian Blackwood, take this woman not as a contract, not as an arrangement, but as your partner in truth and life?" Adrian's eyes never left hers. "I do," he said quietly, but the weight behind those two words filled the room. "And do you, Maya Tran, take this man not for what he owns, but for who he is?" She smiled, steady and sure. "I do." Applause rose gently as he slipped the same silver ring onto her finger, the ring that had once symbolized a lie but now bound them with truth. Adrian leaned close and whispered, "No papers this time, no deal, only us." Maya's voice trembled, but her eyes were bright. "Nothing will be canceled." When they kissed, the crowd clapped softly, and the sound felt like sunlight breaking through a long storm. Later, as guests mingled and the music drifted through the air, Maya stood by the window, looking out at the skyline that had once felt like a cage. Adrian came up behind her, wrapping his arm gently around her waist. "You know," he murmured, "this city used to be the loneliest place in the world." She leaned into him. "Maybe it just needed a little truth." He smiled. "You gave it that." They stayed there in the golden light, watching the city breathe beneath them, their reflections merged in the glass. The world outside was still full of noise, but inside that moment there was only peace. What began as a transaction had become a love story, written not on paper, but in action and forgiveness. And for the first time, both of them knew that the story ahead would not need conditions, signatures, or promises, only choice. And so, the girl who thought it was a fake wedding finally learned that sometimes the truest vows are the ones spoken when no one is watching.